All right, so we're going to start on page 361 of Sri Sarada Devi and her divine play. It's a book composed by Swami Chaitanananda, trying to get a nice comprehensive view of the incarnation of God as the Divine Mother. And it reads very much like a travelogue with all of the moving around that she did, the incredible responsibilities that she took, and how not easily, but in what a relaxed way, she was able just to take things on and manage so many different angles of the work. She took over for Ramakrishna in his work with the initial disciples, and was extremely instrumental in the starting of the order and in Vivekananda's going to the West, and which is the reason that all of us are here. And so it's quite an impactful period of her life that we're reading through right now. She's on, we left her in Varanasi, and she's now looking at the hospital work that's being done there. For anybody who's new to the Ramakrishna order, they've got two sides to it. We have the mats and the missions. The mats are kind of cloistered places of practice, spiritual practice. So those monks more dedicated to a contemplative studying and practicing life would be at a mat, and a mission is usually tied to some sort of service, like a teacher's school or an orphanage or a hospital. And in Varanasi, they've got one of each. And so it's a nice way of kind of helping the order keep focus based on different dispositions. Not everybody is cut out for deep study and long times of meditation, and some people are not cut out for constant service and dedication to the poor and to the sick. And so the order, seeing that, has devised a way of nurturing both dispositions, and nobody stays at one. Everybody mixes. So even if you have a contemplative disposition, you're encouraged sometimes to push against it and expand a little bit. And if you don't like contemplation and you like service, you're also pushed a little bit to develop your contemplative side and to go inside, so that we can all be very rounded people, and just push against nature, as it were, to expand our sense of self in love for the world around us. So it says here on page 361, there are two Ramakrishna centers in Varanasi adjacent to each other. The Ramakrishna Advaita Ashrama, right, which an Advaita Ashrama is really God without form usually, and going directly toward that ideal that God alone is real and anything else is unreal, and that you can find that divine reality within yourself by searching for that part of you within that does not change, that absolute unchanging center of you, that even though your body and mind change constantly, this inner component, the true self in you, is what maintains that unity and that line of identity, that this is you. It's the vehicle of that I am. So there are two Ramakrishna centers in Varanasi. They're adjacent to each other. There's the Advaita Ashrama, where the monks devote themselves mainly to scriptural study and meditation, and the Ramakrishna Mission Home of Service, where monks conduct a free hospital and dispensary for the poor. On the 10th of November, Holy Mother was taken around the hospital in a palanquin, as it was difficult for her to walk through the large hospital compound. It is a very large compound in a very crowded city. It's amazing the amount of work that there's, because not only now do they have these two things, a dispensary for the poor and a free hospital, now they also have an old folks home for old wandering sadhus. And they don't necessarily have to be of the same order. It's a service to all wandering monks who, in their old age, need special care or need a place to go. On the 10th of November, she was taken around the hospital in a palanquin, Holy Mother, as it was difficult for her to walk around this large hospital compound. Swami Akalananda gave her a guided tour of the different hospital wards. She also saw the flower and kitchen gardens and the living quarters at the monastic work of the monastic workers. Interestingly enough, too, something that I saw when I was there, gosh, last time, now it's already been 10 years. Oh my gosh. Good Lord, y'all. I'm going to be dead before long. This time is passing fast. Well, 10 years ago, anyway, when I was in Varanasi at the center there, um, I got a tour, and they have a dairy farm. I think it's the dairy cows making the milk products for all of the people in the hospital. And they've done a very ingenious thing in that they collect all of that manure from all of their dairy cows, and they put it into an underground cistern that's fully covered. And as it decomposes and creates methane, they pipe that methane into the hospital, and all of the cooking for the hospital inmates is done from that methane from the cows. And so they have a closed system. It's quite ingenious, and saved themselves a lot of money. She then sat on the southern veranda of the hospital with Brahmananda, Shivananda, Turiyananda, and several other monks. Guy, it's almost overwhelming when I read these names in a row. A Holy Mother, first of all, just seeing Holy Mother is amazing. But to have her sitting there with with all of these great monks, I mean, real pillars of the order. Oh, Bindu, hello. Good to see you. So here she is, just casually sitting on the wall, with Brahmananda, who became one of the presidents of the order. He was considered the spiritual son of Sri Ramakrishna, so a very strong disciple there. Shivananda, Turiyananda, and several other monks and devotees. And greatly pleased with the visit, she remarked, "Sri Ramakrishna is ever present in this place, and Mother Lakshmi always casts her benign glance upon it." Yeah, any place where where love is being generously distributed will always have a beautiful atmosphere. The presence of the divine is always there, and the blessings of God are always upon a place like that. Holy Mother was told how the work had originally been started by just a few young men who were inspired by Swami Vivekananda's exhortation to dedicate their lives to the service of the sick and the needy. And this is one of the sentences that inspired me to want to read this part again today, because I just wanted to show you the value of living a great life. Look, Vivekananda dedicated his everything to love, to God, to his divine reality. And just because of his integrity and his renunciation, his amazing discernment and inner wisdom that you see in all of his complete works, but just during his lifetime, before all of those complete works were written and compiled and available to everybody, it was just his life. And the fact that just living his life was such an amazing inspiration to other people, so that so many young monks joined the order in order to serve, in order to release their spiritual potential, that potential of that pure love that lies within us. And just to see that and know that this is what you are becoming, that you also spending time with Holy Mother, with Ramakrishna, with Jesus, or with Buddha, or any of your chosen ideal, to spend your time in meditation, contemplation on these things, to do that tough work of disciplining the mind and disciplining the body, and keeping a rein on things, so that things go in a positive and helpful direction for yourself. This is what you're becoming. You're becoming an inspiring devotee. You are becoming a dispenser of great love, and something this world desperately needs. So even though it's something you're doing alone, and even though it's sometimes something you're doing or you're suffering alone, it's a great value and a wonder for you to develop your nature as a spiritual being, and to provide, to inspire other people around you, inspiring me in getting it all going and keeping it going and being so steady in these things. They began with only a few pennies. Brahmananda described how Swami Akalananda, Swami Satchitananda, Charu, later Swami Shubhananda, and others had built this institution through their sincere efforts, through their enthusiasm and dedication. Moved, the mother said, "This place is so beautiful that I feel like living here." After returning to her residence, she sent a small donation of 10 rupees to the hospital, and that 10 rupee note has been preserved permanently in a frame in the home of service as the mother's blessing. Yes, it's there to this day, actually. After a while, when M arrived, the members of the home of service talked about how much Holy Mother appreciated the institution. M often said that the master did not approve of a person performing social service before realizing God. One of the monks said to M, "Mother has just told us that the activities of the home of service are service to the master himself, and that he is tangibly present here." You know, what he's alluding here is there was a kind of a conversation about Ramakrishna when the order was starting. Because the traditional monk would never work in a house of service, would never be involved in an orphanage or a teaching institution or something like that. Monks were to be renunciates, set outside of society, to go wander off into the mountains and become gurus, become realized souls. And of course, of course, that's an aspect of life in general, but certainly for monks. But also, Ramakrishna said, what are they going to do? Sit and meditate all the time? There's also up and doing that needs to be done. We need to take care. And the service of God and man is the highest form of worship, he said. But when the order was first starting, there was lots of arguments about whether we should be a contemplative order or whether we should be a mission order, and ne'er the two shall meet. But actually, it became both and has nurtured both aspects and considers both aspects important. Every one of us is responsible for showing love. Every one of us is responsible to open our hearts and to care and to give to society around us and to live in society with a watchful eye on how we can be of service, how we can be of better service to each other. And so they're talking about this conversation here, and M is showing them, or M is being taught, because M was one of the ones that wasn't quite sure that we should be doing, service-oriented projects in a monastery. And so here he's being pointed out to him, no, see, Mother has blessed this place and said that Ramakrishna is here and that this is a great blessing. And so he's accepting it. You can see his lack of ego, which is the greatest gift the master gave to him. We know from day one, Ramakrishna went after M's egoism, not that he had any more than the rest of us, but he had a very special purpose in Ramakrishna's life. And so Ramakrishna really stepped in there to help him propel him forward in his spiritual life. So he says, so one of the monks is saying to him, so Mother just told us that the activities of the home of service are service to the master himself, and that he is tangibly present here. Now what do you say? Swami Brahmananda interjected, Master Mahashai, you have heard what Mother said. The mother has seen the master in the home of service, and she mentioned that the activities of the hospital are the master's work. Now you cannot deny it. M replied with a smile. You see, that's how it is to be without egoism. You get directly challenged, directly called onto the carpet, and you smile, not offended, not defensive, not coming up with your brilliant defense of yourself. You smile and say, how can I deny it anymore? Right? You can easily curb your direction into a better direction without feeling attachment to what you were doing before. So these are signs of a broken ego, of an ego that has been dedicated to the highest ideal. And so we can learn from this. How do you feel when you're challenged? How do you feel when you're corrected? Do you accept it? Can you go inside and do some objective discernment and see, oh gosh, I've been challenged about this. Is it a true thing in me? Yes or no? Is there any way I can improve it? What can I do? We accept these things, and if there's nothing there, we drop it and move on. So what? The person saw something that wasn't there, or assumed something that wasn't true. No big deal. We just keep going on, going forward. It's just that being working on our ego allows it to be less painful to us, and in a funny way, less annoying to everybody else. Every morning during his walk, Brahmananda visited Holy Mother's residence and called the mother's nephew, Budhev, from downstairs. He inquired about the mother's health from Golap Ma. He did not go upstairs to see the mother for fear of being overwhelmed with emotion, right? Because she was part of his highest ideal, the companion to his guru. So he had a very, very deep reverence and such a pure and clear mind that just to be in her presence would have overwhelmed him, would have possibly sent him into samadhi. And so he's asking, kind of checking around all the edges, finding out how she is and if there's any needs and anything that she can do for her, that he can do for her. So one morning he stood in the courtyard to pay his respects to the mother, and Golab Ma said, Rakal, which was his pre-monastic name, the mother asks why a devotee propitiates Shakti, the Divine Mother, at the beginning of worship. Brahmananda replied, it is because the key to knowledge of Brahman is in the Divine Mother's custody. There is no way to commune with Brahman unless the mother graciously unlocks the door. I'm going to step out on a limb here just because something just flew into my mind and I loved the idea, but I haven't really sussed it out. But remember, we talked a little bit about the possibility that active mind, the thinking mind, a mind with thoughts and objects in it, which are not different, that is representational of Shakti, the world of the power of God, right? Because everything is mind. And so the creation is actually within the mind of the divine. That would be active mind. That would be Shakti. And so here he's saying that the key to knowledge of Brahman is in the Divine Mother's custody. So it's in that space. And, it's like, that's why Mother says, the grace of God is easy to attain, but the grace of one's own mind is difficult indeed. Because our mind is what holds our karma. Our mind is what holds our story, our narrative that forms our ego. It's our mind where we create a buffer space where we are in charge and we exist. And so to get permission from yourself, from your own mind, is very reminiscent to this idea of the Holy Mother, the Divine Mother, holding the key, that you can't go where your mind won't let you go. And how do we go beyond that? By accepting grace, by accepting that it's Mother's work and separating ourselves even from the doership of that. Based on Mother saying, is it not the mother's duty to clean, the baby that has soiled itself? Is it not the mother's duty to change that diaper? The baby's not expected to clean itself up. That's the mother's work, and so that's one aspect, one way of approaching the divine. But it's this necessity of understanding a couple of things. I'm going to go off the tracks here in a minute, just talking about things I love to talk about. But this whole notion that to go, there is no going forward in that sense. That this moment is all that we have. And we've talked earlier in the week, or at least I've done at least one vlog, maybe two vlogs on this week. Actually, I've done a lecture on it too. But this notion of your realization is right now, and it's right here, and it's in this moment that you will one day discover it, uncover it within you. But that there's not a doership in that our practice is not a doing of things, it's a surrendering of things, an undoing of things. And that a lot of that work of our inner world is the acceptance of grace, is building our faith in this idea of someone who has an unconditioned love for us, a love that doesn't have a requirement, doesn't have a condition or a circumstance, that it's readily available. And all that has to happen for your realization is your acceptance of that grace. And we've talked many times, that's a tricky uh, uh, place to walk, because infinite grace is going to require infinite humility. You're going to really have to stand in a place where you've done your darndest and have not been able to win. And you've understood you don't have the power to do this, because your realization is the one effect with no cause. Very important statement. And so in that, our work as practitioners is not our enlightenment, but the acceptance of our enlightenment. To be willing to lay down all of the aspects of ourselves that are not in line with our divine nature, with the expression of that divine principle that is at the heart and center of what we are. And so it's through this acceptance of this grace, through this surrender of our effort through discernment, not a giving up, not a tamasic laziness, not a tamasic license. I don't have to do anything, God will do it for me. No. That kind of attitude shows a complete lack of understanding of what you've been given, right? To understand what we've been given, we would never respond with license. We would only respond with an inspired gratitude, an inspired love of like, oh my good Lord, that you have done this for me, that you have done this for me, And we strive then to be the perfect partner for the perfect partner. If you want to look at your relationship with the divine as marriage, you've married the perfect partner. And that's a very stressful place for an imperfect person to be, because your partner, your husband, Ramakrishna, or your wife, Holy Mother, is never wrong. Every argument, they're right. And to be able to live in that, to surrender to that, and to efface the egoism in ourselves, to accept that, very, very, very difficult. But because they're always right, they're always loving, and they're always on your side, and they're always cheering for you, and they've always got your back, and they're never angry beyond a moment. No grudges, no weird behaviors, no toxic, habits at all in themselves. And so this is really what we're doing. We're learning to live with perfection by the faith that we have in our divine nature, because we see the amount of love and grace that God affords us. That teaches us the value of our inner self. That teaches us what our worth is. And our worth does not then come from being based on what we do or what we know or what we say. Our value comes because it can be nothing else. The Lord himself has given everything for what is inside of us, has written tens of thousands of years of human history filled with the story of the divine pursuit of the ignorant fool, the divine hunt for setting us free, for catching us and then tossing us back. So Brahmananda is saying, it is because the key to the knowledge of Brahman is in the Divine Mother's custody. There is no way to commune with Brahman unless the mother graciously unlocks the door, right? Until she lets those tumblers arrange in the mind that allow you to surrender, that allow you to have the faith to let go in the dark and to fall into her lap. Then he sang this song, O mind, remain immersed in meditation on Shankari's feet. Remain immersed and escape the suffering of life. All these three worlds are unreal. In vain you roam about them, right? Not meaninglessness, but vanity. What does vain mean? It's like wandering through a dream. You're not going anywhere. Nothing's being done, right? This is just a realm of ideas that we inhabit. And so all of these worlds are unreal because they're constantly changing. That's how the master says you know what is real or what is not real. That which is changing is unreal. That which is unchanging alone is real. So meditate on the Divine Mother in your heart, because that's where you find that which is unchanging. Kamalakanta says, sing the Mother's glory. That's how you bring your mind to its willingness to come to its knees before the Divine Mother. Just sing of the beauty of the Mother. Let her manifest that wonder. Let her help you become aware of that grace of a mother. And the world will become a river of bliss. Paddle slowly in it. Why paddle slowly? Enjoy it. Enjoy it. The race is not to get out of here. The race is to walk humbly with your beloved. The race is to enjoy your work and walk humbly with your beloved. That's life. The point of life, according to Sri Nisargadatta, if you remember the title of the chapter we're on in that book, you know, that life is for living. And what is living? Living is to manifest your nature. You're here to manifest Satchitananda, to be the verb of God's noun, pure love, that your love might become unconditioned, might flow freely and equanimously to everyone around you. This is life, and this is why you're here. Not to escape into some palace of your own in a heaven somewhere, but to learn to see your beloved everywhere around you and to enjoy the overwhelming bliss of samadhi that will cause, and the joy of just being with the devotees that Ramakrishna held on to keep his body. You know, he taught us and showed us. And this world, in that way, when you learn to live according to your nature, according to love and wisdom, the world will become a river of bliss. Then you can chill and paddle slowly in it, just enjoying your walk with the beloved. While he was singing, he danced in ecstasy. While singing, he danced in ecstasy, and finally he rushed out of the house, joyfully roaring, "Ho, ho, ho!" The mother, who was watching from the veranda of the second floor, was delighted to see this fervor and his dancing. M and a couple of the devotees also witnessed this event. That's what happens when you get all those great lovers of God together in one place and with the Divine Mother in their midst. You're going to get a ho, ho, ho somewhere. The visit to Sarada. Oh my God, I would love to be a fly, to wander back. Actually, forget being a fly. I'd like to be a person wandering back and stumbling into that arena of greats. Visit to Sharanat. One day, Radhu expressed a desire to see Sharanat, where Buddha preached his first sermon after attaining nirvana. Ooh, I saw that place. Situated about 7 miles from Varanasi, it is an important holy place of the Buddhist tradition. At that time, Alberta Montague and her husband, George, later the Earl of Sandwich, were staying in a hotel in Varanasi. Alberta was the daughter of Betty Leggett and the niece of Josephine MacLeod. Oh, wow. Alberta and her husband visited Holy Mother, and who inquired about Alberta's mother and aunt. They offered a phaeton for the mother's visit to Sharanat, but it did not arrive on time, so the mother left with Radhu, Bhudeb, and others in a hired carriage. When Alberta's phaeton arrived, Swami Brahmananda followed the mother's carriage and the 2 attendants and a devotee, with 2 attendants and a devotee. Holy Mother toured the holy site and saw the various ruins of ancient monasteries associated with Buddha and his disciples. There's a great big stupa there. And it's amazing because there's busload after busload after busload pulling into that place with monks and nuns and devotees of Buddha from all around the world. And you see them all sitting in little groups in meditation all over that lawn in front of that stupa, doing their practice. It'll be a group of Japanese people there and a group of, Nepalese there, and there'll be some Indians there, and there'll be some Brits over here. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to see. And then all of them getting back on their respective, uh, I guess, a spiritual tour bus. I guess they go on these spiritual pilgrimage tours. Anyway, it's a wonderful place to see. And the amount of history that you feel there as you walk among these monuments that are, thousands of years old, still standing and still performing their function of inspiring the devotees. An amazing place. Mother toured the holy site, and she saw the various ruins of ancient monasteries associated with Buddha and his disciples. Holy Mother noticed that several European visitors were also visiting the holy site. Referring to them, Mother remarked, "They built all of this in a previous birth, and now they have come back again to see what they did centuries ago. They are speechless with wonder, admiring these amazing relics." Wow, that's another little mystery idea there. This notion that in previous lives they built these great monuments, and now in later lives they're taking pilgrimages to their own work. I have a funny kind of a weird story about that in a way, because I remember in San Francisco, before I had any interest in spiritual life, before I had joined the monastery or even knew what Vedanta was, I remember I was walking up the Fillmore Hill where the new temple is, and I sounded out Vivekananda's name is on there because we have Vivekananda Centenary Hall, which is the big meeting hall in the temple, and it's on the outside in big letters. And I can remember standing there and sounding that name out, Vivekananda. It's like, wow. And at that time they were just building the new temple addition. And I was walking up that hill with nothing to do with that center. And I just noticed it, and I thought, God, I wonder what that place is. They must. And I remember thinking to myself, forgive me for this. I thought to myself, I was like, good Lord, how much money they have to be building in this neighborhood? Because they're one block down from Billionaires Row on the side of the hill in Pacific Heights, with a full 180-degree view of downtown and the bridges and the Alcatraz and Marin and the mountains. Oh, it's just and the Golden Gate Bridge, of course. And I was just walking by that place, had nothing to do with it. Just made that comment and just kept walking. And then I remember 10 years later, I was a monk in that building, and I went out and I stood on that sidewalk, and I remembered walking by there knowing nothing about that place. And it was a real moment where I thought, how many other places have I walked by that have nothing to do with me now, but are going to be a big part of my life later? How do you know this? And that's kind of a one life snapshot of what Mother's talking about in the big snapshot here. These people are now worshiping in the buildings that they themselves built with their own devotion for their own ideal. So this world, when you begin looking at it through spiritual eyes, there's some twists and turns. There's some great fun going on under the surface for us to find, to notice. Before they returned to Varanasi, Brahmananda asked the mother to travel in the phaeton, but she had the hired carriage, and it was quite comfortable for her. The Swami insisted, however, so Holy Mother and her party rode in the phaeton, while Swami Brahmananda and his companions took the hired carriage. On the road back to Varanasi, the Swami's driver had problems controlling his horse. The horse became agitated while taking a sharp turn after crossing a bridge, and it pulled the carriage down into a shallow ditch. Fortunately, no one was seriously hurt, although they were badly jolted. Brahmananda joyfully remarked, "Here's another sign that ego is gone." Here's another sign. Your carriage tips over, gets caught in the mud, and you joyfully make an announcement. Joyfully remarked, it is fortunate that the mother did not go by this carriage. When the mother heard about Brahmananda's accident, she said, "I was fated for this mishap, but Rakal, by force as it were, took it on his own shoulders. I had several children with me. Who knows what might have happened to them? So just, the beauty in all of that, well, there's lots of beauty in that, but one of the important forms of beauty in that is this is what happens when you're amongst a group of people that love each other. They assume the best, they assume the highest in each other, and they appreciate the highest in each other. They don't see the faults, they don't look for the shortcomings. And when a bad thing happens or something comes over, they're not running around looking for whose fault it is. They're not running around looking for who to blame. They'll joyfully make their announcements and then just get to work. Get to work with what's necessary, staying squarely in the moment. This is what happens when we manage to crack that ego. We become free. We don't feel like we have to react to every little negative thing that happens to us. We don't feel like we have to defend our honor, that we have to defend people's opinions about ourselves. We don't have to get concerned about what people think about us and get all caught up in these nonsensical things that cause a lot of agitation inside. They hurt inside. They keep us from enjoying peace, from enjoying that inner solitude. And that's all part of why Brahmananda is saying, that it's the divine mother, it's Shakti, it's the active mind that must be propitiated. It's like you have to befriend your own mind. You have to be kind to your mind, but firm. Your mind is your disciple. And it's important to treat it like your disciple so that you always encourage it. You're always hopeful. You're always positive when you go into your mind and you look around. You don't identify with it. It's not you, it's your disciple. And you love your disciple, right? You don't get angry with the mind. You don't get frustrated with the mind. You gently keep putting the mind on the right track and going forward, because it is the mind that will release you. The mind that will finally be willing to let go because it finds safety in a grace that it finally understands or finally accepts. And it lays down the defenses. It lays down egoism. It lays down all of the things that it gathered to try and maintain a sense of safety, but a fake sense of safety, a safety based on assumptions and habits that in the end weren't helpful. So this is what happens when that ego breaks. You touch that inner peace and you find the way to peace, and you become a blessing to the people around you, to the world around you. And this is your destiny. I'm always a little afraid around religion, because in religion we tend to take these people who have managed to do this work and who have managed to efface their egos by the acceptance of this love. We always put them on a pedestal, and instead of seeing them as examples of what's possible to us, we worship them and put a distance between us and say, oh, well, we could never be that, right? And we shut down and we become worshipers, who have separated our own self from our ideal, when that wasn't the goal. that wasn't why Mother came. That wasn't why Thakur came. They came and lived to show you that you can be like that, and that they'll cover 15/16 of that effort for you. And all you have to do is turn to them and reach up your hand, get that sail hoisted, and off you go. Off you go. So long for these things. This is why we're here. There's greatness waiting for you. That's not our goal, but that's what we are. And it can't be resisted. You're going to lose the battle. Mother's going to win. So why fight it? Why make yourself miserable, in the pursuit of a safety and an ego that doesn't exist? Let go. Let go. Stay in the moment. Forget the past. Stop thinking about the future. Be present and put your divine nature in charge of what you are. And let go of all of the other stories that try to tear you in different directions. If you just stay centered, you'll stay free. Don't get caught up in a narrative. That's where your vices are waiting for you. That's where your delusions are waiting. Don't get caught in narratives. Narratives require past and a future. Stay in the moment. There's no story there. There's only isness, you and the divine. And you surrender. Let the divine express in the moment, and it will take whatever comes your way and make it beautiful. This is the nature of things. The days in Varanasi. One day, Brahmananda asked his attendant, Shankarananda, to prepare some vegetable chops, fried vegetable patties. Ooh, I had some of those in Rishikesh. For the mother, accordingly, Shankarananda went to the market and bought the fresh banana flowers and potatoes. He boiled them, added roasted farina and some spices, and shaped them into patties. And after that, he fried them, arranged them on a plate, and carried them to the shrine. Holy Mother offered them to the master and then ate the prasad during her lunch. The mother and her companions greatly enjoyed the crispy, tasty vegetable chops. When Golap Ma praised the dish, Brahmananda said to her, Golap Ma, you think that only women know how to cook. Now you see our boys know how to cook better than you. Swami Shantanananda, an attendant of the mother, recorded the following incidents in his diary. When the mother was at Varanasi, she would perform rituals in her residence. I would pick flowers from the Advaita ashrama and carry fruits and sweets for offering to the master. One day, I was close to her residence. A kite swooped down and took away some jalapis from my hand. I was depressed and told mother what had happened. She did not offer the remaining jalapis to the master, nor did she give us any to eat. She said, it is not good for you to eat this sweet because the kite's claws might carry some impurity. It is amazing how she loved her children. On the 7th, Sunday, December 1912, in the morning, the mother went by horse carriage to the Dashashwamedha Ghat. And after bathing in the Ghat, the Ganges, she visited Vishwanath, Annapurna, and Tundi Ganesha, and then returned to her residence. On Tuesday, the 9th, the mother had a bath in the confluence of the Asi and the Ganges and visited the Jagannath temple. Then she went to the Shankat Mochan temple. Seeing the large banyan tree nearby, she commented, this tree is similar to the one in our Panchavati of Dakshineshwar. She touched the tree. She then bowed down to Ramachandra and Mahavir, Hanuman. She also visited the Durga Bari and Swami Bhaskarananda's temple. You see, this is what happens to a pure mind. You know, everything begins to remind it of holy places. Everything begins to remind it of holy stories, begins to remind it of holy people, of our ideals. We start seeing it everywhere. That's why Thakur says the highest state, the highest blessing we can have is to live in this world and to see the face of our beloved in everything, to see God everywhere present and always perfect, not with the eyes of just a believing, but an eye that sees the reality, sees not just this thin skin of a moment, right? When you think about it, Maya, think how thin Maya has to be, you know? At what point does the future become the past? That sliver that it is the moment, you know, that is where all of our delusion lies, just in that sliver thin spot right there. You know, that's where our freedom lies. And then the story that we pack around it, that's what keeps us deluded. But you see how thin it is. This reality of the changing, less than paper thin, right? Less than paper thin. The reality is immense and infinite. Our delusion, though, very, very, very small. It's just a matter of letting go, just a matter of pushing, just a bit, with grace to go beyond it. On Friday, the 12th of December, the mother and Radhu went to visit Kalbhairav, Shiva, by palanquin, and a monk, Swami Shantananda, went as her guide. Golab Ma and others went by carriage. Brahmananda arranged for the palanquin so that the mother would not have to walk much. The mother sat at the northwest corner of the temple and repeated a mantra for some time. Beautiful. Then she visited Trilanga's Swami's temple and the Benimadev temple. With the mother's permission, Radhu and Budhev went to the top of the Benimadev tower, and the mother and her disciple waited below. By and by, the mother said, "You see how I am old, so I cannot go to the top. When I came to Varanasi after the master's passing away, I climbed up to the top of this temple. I also climbed to the top of Savitri Hill at Pushkar and Chandi Hill in Hardwar. Afterward, the mother visited the Divine Mother at Shankata, Vireshwar Shiva, and the Manikarnika cremation ground. She returned to her residence in the evening. On the Wednesday, the 30th of December, it was Holy Mother's birthday. She attended a special worship and a homa fire at the Advaita ashrama, and many devotees paid their respects to her. She then took some prasad and returned to her residence. During her stay at Varanasi, the mother would go for a bath in the Ganges almost every other day, and she visited various temples and places, such as Batuk Bhairav, Kamakhya, Vaidyanatha, Shankarmat, Ramkunda, and so on. A Ras Leela party came from Vrindavan to give a performance on Krishna's life at the Sankat Mochan temple. Dr. Nripan Mukhopadhyay arranged a performance at Advaita Ashrama so the mother could see it. She watched the Ras Leela for 3 evenings and was very pleased. She remarked, "I found the representation of the same as the real," and then gave a few rupees to those actors to show her appreciation. One day, Holy Mother decided to feed the disciples of the Master at Lakshmi Nivas, her residence. A sumptuous feast was arranged, and Swamis Brahmananda, Shivananda, Turiyananda, Vijnanananda, and other monks enjoyed the food. They all sat on the ground floor veranda. When the mother was asked to eat her lunch, she replied, "Let my children eat first, then I'll eat." She stood near the monks as they ate and supervised the serving of food. Each monk received a cotton cloth, except Swami Brahmananda, who got a silk cloth. When Holy Mother was asked why she had given a silk cloth to Maharaj and the others an ordinary cloth, she replied, "Because he is the Master's spiritual son." After the meal, the monks washed their hands and mouths and tied their cloths around their heads and danced joyfully in front of the mother. Then the mother decided to present clothes to all monks of both Advaita Ashrama and Sevashrama and asked me to buy clothes from the market. When the cloths were distributed, it happened that one cloth was short for a monk from Sevashrama. When I suggested that it would be all right not to buy him a new cloth, Holy Mother replied, "If you do not have one, it does not matter. But those monks are nursing the patients and working so hard. I will give cloths to these monks first. Go to the market and buy another piece of cloth." I obeyed. Another day, the mother arranged a feast at Advaita Ashrama and fed the monks of Shankara's order. This is a wonderful ideal for us to follow, the way that Mother is in this service. One of the ways, and of course, many of you are already like this, but it's just a good thing to keep our eye on that ideal. You should always have something in the pantry for a guest, something in your house for someone who comes to visit, something to give them, just to express your love, to open that door for that connection with each other. It's one of the things I've learned from being around the Indian devotees is that wonderful sense of hospitality that belongs to the whole world. That this long-standing tradition. It's also a tradition in the old West, not the not the cowboy West, but like the ancient West. Also, this notion that visitors are God. That guests in your house are divine, and to really open up that joy in your heart in serving them as such. To enjoy serving your master, your divine ideal, that God of infinite love. and to really give yourself an opportunity to not deal with ordinary people, but to deal with your divine beloved through those ordinary people, so that their mistakes and their shortcomings don't become the botheration to you, but them as the symbol at the first. In the first, it's just symbol. You see them as a symbol of the presence of your beloved or your highest ideal. And then in time, you will, in fact, see your highest ideal in them, because it's there, just like it's there in you. It's just behind a dusty veil of wrong thinking, of a narrative that's not true. All right. I think we'll stop there for the evening. It's a good place.